All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Pei Dalet Maseches Yevamos. So, beginning of the ninth parak. So it says, Yesh mutaros lebaleihen v'asuros liyivameim. There are those, women that are mutter to their husbands, but if they would go ahead and marry their yavam, and we're going to explain all four of these scenarios, they would be usher to their husband, or not necessarily an isser of an isser kares, which would completely exclude them from the parsha of yivam v'chalitza. Rather, just a lav, as we'll soon see. So, and therefore they have to do chalitza. Mutaras liyivamehan, and there are those who are actually mutter to their yivamas, but the usher to their husbands. Mutaras le'elu ve'elu, there are those that are mutter to both. Ulasuros e'elu, and also usher to both. Now let's go category one by one. Ve'elu mutaras le'ba'aleyan v'asuros liyivamehan. So these are ones that are mutter to their husbands, but if they would fall to yibum, then be usher to the yivamas. So kohen hediot, a regular kohen shenasa es almana, who married an almana. We'll soon explain why bedafka this scenario, married an almana, right? V'yesh lo ach kohen gadol, right? His brother is the kohen gadol, and he dies. So now she's an almana, or she was an almana before, right, as the Gemara will ask. So she's usher, right? Kohen gadol is usher the almana, right? Or a cholol shenasa kshera. Now a cholol who married a kshera. Now a woman is she can marry a cholol, as the Gemara will point out. But once she marries a cholol, right, she becomes a cholol, right? V'yesh lo ach kasher, and he has a regular brother who's kasher, right? And therefore, right, basically the scenario, the brothers were, I guess it could be from different mothers, right? One was a cholol, one was not. And therefore, but now once she's a chalala and he's an ach kasher, should be usher to him. Or Yisrael shenasa bas Yisrael, or Yisrael married a regular woman, v'yesh lo ach mamzer, and he has a brother who's a mamzer. So there's a lot. Or mamzer shenasa mamzeres, or mamzer who married a mamzeres, which is a mutter. V'yesh lo ach Yisrael, and he has a paternal brother who's a Yisrael, and his brother who's the mamzer dies, so his mamzeres falls to him. That would be an isser lav. Fine. Now, mutaros. So that was category A. Category B. Mutaros lebalei and v'asuros liyivameim. They mutter to the husbands, usher the yivamas. So that was the category of mutaros lebalei and v'asuros liyivameim. Those are mutter to their husbands, usher the yivam. Now, ve'elu mutaros liyivameim v'asuros lebalei, and these are the category. This is the category of those who are mutter to the yivamas, but they shouldn't have been married to the husbands in the first place. Kohen gadol shekidesh es almana. You have a kohen gadol that he was kidesh es almana, right? He was even his mekadesher. We'll soon see why, right? So he was mekadesh the an almana, right? She was already a widowed before. V'yesh lo ach kohen hediot, and his brother's a regular kohen hediot who was not commanded upon an almana, so therefore she mutter to him. Or kasher shenasa chalala, or you have a kohen who's a kasher. Right, we're in the last skinny line in the Mishnah. Kasher shenasa chalala v'yesh lo ach chalal. So a kohen that married a chalala, which he should not have, but so she's a chalala v'yesh lo ach chalal. And when he dies, but the brother is a chalal, so a chalal can marry a chalala. Or Yisrael shenasa mamzer. So Yisrael who married a mamzer said he shouldn't have, and then he dies v'yesh lo ach mamzer. And this mamzer falls to the brothers of mamzer, or mamzer shenasa bas Yisrael, or a mamzer who married a bas Yisrael, he should not have. V'yesh lo ach Yisrael, and then she doesn't become a mamzeres for being married to a mamzer, right? So then she becomes widowed from her mamzer husband, and she falls to the brother who's Yisrael. So those are mutaros le'ivayim v'asuros le'baleim. Those are mutar to do yibum, but they were usher. They should not have been married to their husbands in the first place. Ve'elu asuros. And these are the ones who are usher to both. Kohen gadol shenasa as almana, a kohen gadol married almana, v'yesh lo ach Kohen Gadol, and he has a brother who's a Kohen Gadol. Also, he became the Kohen Gadol afterwards. Or soon see that there are times where there's two Kohen Gadols. So in Almana, she's married. She's forbidden both to her first husband and to her Yavam. Oh, Kohen Hadiot Kasher or Kohen Hadiot. In this case, because she comes a Chalal, right? So or a Kohen Hadiot, therefore she becomes a Chalal, and therefore she should be usher to the Kohen Hadiot. Kasher Shenasa Chalala. So he had a kasher, a Kohen who was kasher. He married a Chalala, which is prohibited. And then he dies. The Yeshlach kasher, and he also has a brother, a Kohen, who's kasher. Also, she also forbidden. She's a Chalal. So this Kohen, or Yisrael Shenasa Mamzeres, a Yisrael that married a Mamzeres, which is a no-go, right? The Yeshlach Yisrael, and then he dies, and this Mamzeres falls to another Yisrael, the brother also, right? Should not do Yibum. Mamzer Shenasa Bas Yisrael, or a Mamzer that falls to the Mamzer that married a Bas Yisrael, the Yesh Lo Ach Mamzer, and he has another brother Mamzer. So this Bas Yisrael should not have married the Baal, and also cannot go ahead and marry the Yavam. So these are Asuras Le'elu Ve'elu. Those are forbidden to one another. Ushar Kol Anashim, and all the other women, Mutaros Lebaleim Elivameim. Those, all the others are mutter, right? Regular women, mutter to their husbands and their yavams. Now, shnuyos midivrei seifrim. So you have an extended Isser Erva, which was instituted by the Rabbanim, called shnuyos midivrei seifrim, right? From the divrei seifrim. Shniya lebal v'lo shniya liyavam. If you have a scenario where she's related, right, a shniya, right? Perhaps they have different maternal relatives, and therefore she was only forbidden shniya to the husband, but not to the yavam. So asur labal umuteres the yavam. In this case, she's also the husband, but she's mutter the yavam. Shniya liyavam. Sure, thank you. Shniya liyavam v'lo shniya labal. If she was a shniya liyavam, and then she'd be so usher to the yavam.
Are we going to define who the shniyos are?
So earlier in the Masechta we saw the scenario of some of the shnuyos, right? Rashi gives one example, right? Imo shalbal kagon shahaya achiv mina av. So it doesn't explain the whole case, but I think it's like a maternal grandmother.
So it was like 3 generations.
Right. Maternal grandmother on one side. Right. So, but he's nothing to do with the other side because they have different mothers. So therefore, to the first guy, right? Let's say it was, so it would have been usher. But when she falls to Yibum, she has no relation to his brother. So therefore, that's the case we're talking about. That she was usher the first one and mutter the second one. And Shnei Zeh Asura. The Shnei is the brother is usher. And Shnei Zeh Asura Zeh. So now. We say Ein la ksuba. So in this case, she would have not a ksuba. She would not be given a ksuba when the end of the marriage. This Nichsei Sona Barzel was not be given to her for like peiros. Also, she doesn't get peiros in terms of she doesn't she is punished, right? She doesn't get the peiros from the Nichsei Malug. Right, in the scenario that he ate of hers,
married to the Baal in the first place,
right? V'lo mazonos, and not support, v'lo blus, and also not, different clothing and stuff that she brought in that normally times that she would bring in that he would have to go ahead and give her at the end of the marriage. He doesn't give her the havlad kasher. However, all these cases the vlad is kasher. It's not a mamzer because it's only shnuyos. It's not considered to be an Isser Erva Midaraisa. Thank you. The Kaifinos Alahitzim. We also force him to go ahead, and if he is married to her, then we do force him to go ahead and divorce him. Almana LeKohen Gadol. If you have a scenario where Almana married a Kohen Gadol, or Gusha Chutzel Kohen Hedyot, or Mamzeres, but Asina Yisrael, and a Mamzeres or an Asina, right, to Yisrael, where there's a lav. Ubas Yisrael and Asina Mamzer Yesh Lahem Ksuba. They have a Ksuba. We're not guys there in their case, like in the case that we just had of the Shnuyos. Fine. Correct. Fine. Zok the Gemara. Now, My area, the Tani Nasa. Why does the first case? Let's concentrate on the first case. So the first case was a scenario of mutter to her husband, but she's asur to Yav. So the first case was Kohen Hediot, Shenasa and Amana, a Kohen Hediot, they are completely married. He didn't sue with a widow. And he has the Ach, and his brother's a Kohen Gadol. Now, Ma'ir Tani Nasa, Lisni Kidesh. Well, just say he was Mekadesh or the first step, because remember, the brother's the Kohen Gadol. So even if she was widowed, right, from the Kedushin, she's still technically an Almana. So that would make her an Almana for the Kohen Gadol. So why B'dafka did they use the case of where Shenasa, right, that he didn't sue it, right? So maybe
because she may still be a basula from Arison.
So if you want to say the reason Nasa the Havile Asiv say, like Eddie is pointing out that maybe now there's an Asin say, right?
She still wouldn't have been a Basula.
No, because
even from the first one, because she's an Almana. He just
so the Gemara, so Enachinami, so the Gemara, we're going to touch that point. Why, but after we're talking about an Almana, right? Because she should have been a regular woman. Now she's only becoming an Almana from this marriage. But what the Gemara is going to ask on that next. So if you want to say maybe Tam in this case is Dinasa, maybe the first one, right? She was also only Arison, right? Dinasa Davide Asiv Elisa say maybe it's Asiv Elisa say we're going to take him, right? It says take a basula, and it says don't take an Almana. So maybe it's right aval kidesh. But if there's only mikadesh, is asi v'adeichel. So maybe the ase would override the license, eh? So where it says, but that doesn't make sense. Well, v'hakula pirikin asi v'leisa say, right? We have the entire Masechta is full of cases of where there's just a lav and there's an ase of go ahead do yibum and v'lo asi v'deichel and the asi does not come in deichel say. So the Gemara says no. Why does it say over here Nasa? You're right. It could have said Mekadesh. So why is it Nasa? Mishum the Kavai. Let me see Sefer because our Sefer, but Dafka we need the case of Kohen Gadol Shenasa Es Almana. Kohen Dafka the first case when he says the privilege is Dafka Shenasa Almana. In that case, right? Because over there in the third case he made her a Chalala, right? So there, Dafka Nasa, the Shavi Chalala, only Dafka there had to be Nesu, and it couldn't just been Arison, because we needed a scenario where she was Niveles, she had relations with the Kohen Gadol to make her a Chalala, and therefore that would make her usher to a Kohen Hediot. Aval Kidesh, Sharyale. But if it was just, in that case, if it was Kidesh, Sharyale. So therefore, since over there, need to write Nasa, Tananami Reisha Nasa, therefore in our case, also a Nasa. So Gemara says, wait, still, Vadatani, B'Shub Sefer, why? Because of the say for the third cases, right? The third group of cases, you wanted to say Nasa, so you will hear. By the time Mishum Sefer, at least in Mishum Mitziasa. Why don't you say because the middle case, Kohen Gadol, Shekidesh Es Almana. If a Kohen Gadol was Mekadesh Es Almana, and therefore is only Kedushin, the Yesh La'ach Kohen Hediot, and therefore, in other words, she's Kidesh, she's not a Chalala, and then he has a brother who is a Kohen Hediot, is Mutter. So Ella,
he had no business.
Okay, but right, that was Asr Lazeh. Right, but that was Asr to the first one, and she's still Mutter to the Kohen Hediot because she's not a Chalala. That would be okay for Yibum. So Ella Mishum Bas Buksa. Or rather, because of the other case, because rather the other case, right? The case of Davka Lemisne Chalal, and a case of the Kaveh Lemisne Chalal, Shenasa Kshera, because we want to bring the case of a Chalal that married a Kshera, Tama Denasa, the Shavi Chalal, because over there we wanted to say Davka talking about a case of where he married the Kshera. Right, the Nasa, the Shavi Chalala, Aval Kidesh, Sharyale. But if he was just Mekadesh, then it would be Mutter. So Shemhachi Ktani Nasa. Because of that, they wrote Nasa. So therefore, in our case, it didn't need to write a Kohen Hedish Nasa Samada, even if he would have been Mekadesh Samada. Nevertheless, since the next case was Nasa, we also wrote this case as Nasa. Well, my area, now another question pointed out, which Levi sort of hinted to. My area, Diktani Almanach, at least in Basulo. So why are we talking about a case of a Kohen Hediot that married a widow, and then this widow fell to a Kohen Gadol, and now it's a Kohen Gadol? Well, even if he just married a Basula, right? When he dies, she becomes an almana. So what does it make them? She's almana twice, almana once, right? Why just do that? So alamali say basula. Why did you say badaf? So almana. So at least say basula. You could just say basula. The Gemara says, turn the page, right? Maybe you say like this. Maybe we have a havamina to think that when a woman is mutter for the first brother, right? So therefore, is basically, since she's mutter to that brother, we don't really care that there might be a technical difficulty of her marrying the Yavam, right? Besides Arias. In other words, even though he's the Kohen Gadol, since she was mutter to the first brother, so she should also be mutter for Yibum. In other words, since he's taking over the brother's house, so therefore, since she was mutter to the first one, mutter to the second one. So the Gemara says, in that case, Harei Chalal, Shanas Kshera. Well, what do you mean? You have a Chalal that married a Kshera, right? And then we said that is permitted, right? A Chalal is allowed to marry a Kshera. Right? And we don't say over there, right, that, well, then remember, a Chalal marries a Kshera, then she becomes a Chalala, and then she can't marry the Kohen, the brother. But if you want to say, well, since the first, right, the only reason she becomes a Chalala is because she married a Chalal. So, but since she was mutter to the first, she'd be mutter to the second. We don't say that there. So our answer is, you're right. Rather, the reason why
is she a chalal? What made her a chalal?
Because she was married, she had relations with a chalal. And a chalal who has relations with a kshera, she becomes a chalala. Now she's ruined for future kohana, but she wasn't ruined until now. She was a relative Bas Yisrael.
Oh, but the guy that she married,
the first one was okay. He was a chalal, and was so right. Well, the Gemara is in the 2 point.
That makes her a chalala.
Correct. Right. Very good. Now, so Havadi Mishum Seifa. Rather, no. The reason is because we want to say Mishum Seifa. Since in the Seifa Mishum Kvila Misna Seifa, because we want to say a case of the Seifa of Kohen Gadol Shnas and Almana. The other case where we wanted to have a Kohen Gadol that married an Almana, right? Kohen Gadol or Kohen Hediot, and over there he had another brother who was either Kohen Gadol or Kohen Hediot, and over there Dafka Almana. Over there it had to be the Kohen Gadol married Almana to make her a Chalala, right? About Basula, Chazila. But over there, if it would have been a Basula, it would have been okay for her to go ahead and marry the Kohen Hediot. Shemachik Tani Almana. Therefore, it says Almana. So now we explained why in our first case it says Nasa, even though it doesn't have to be because of the other cases, and also why Dafka said Almana, it didn't have to be because of the other cases. So Enechanami, in this case, it really doesn't make a difference, right? In our case, but we want to go ahead and go along with the others. Now, if we hold by this halacha, by this halacha that was taught by Rav Dima Rav Yechanan, what was the halacha? Mitzri Sheni, Shenasa Mitzri Rishona, a Mitzri Sheni that married a Mitzri Rishona, right? So a second generation Mitzri. Now we know that the third generation is permitted, right? But not the first two. So Mitzri Sheni, he was second generation, a convert for the Mitzrim, right? And he married a first, Mitzri Sheni's Rishona. Bina Sheni, right? It goes at the son is a second, right? Goes after the Sheni, goes after the mother. So how do we
have this discussion before?
Yeah. So using that halacha, right? Using that halacha. Now let's keep in mind, using that halacha that the son would follow her, right? But why didn't our Mishnah teach another case, right? Now Mitzri Sheni, if you have a Mitzri Sheni, Shenasa Shnei Mitzrias, right? You have a Mitzri Sheni that married two Mitzrias, right? Two women. Achas Rishona, the Achas Shnia. So you had two wives. One was a Mitzri Rishona, the other one was a Shnia. But how do they bun? And therefore, Banim Rishon Vishnia, and he had a son from each one of them. Now, the son from the one and from the Rishon and Shnia would result in a Shnia Ushlishis, right? One is mutter to Yisrael, and one is aser to Yisrael, right? The mutter Yisrael is the Shlishis, and the other one is still Sheni seen as out. So and if each one of them went ahead and married the proper people, in other words, the Sheni married a Mitzri Sheni, and the Shlishi went ahead and either married a Yisrael. So that would be a case of Mutar Slabaleim Basur Slivameya. they would be mutter to their husbands because they married someone appropriate, but the usher to the other one. In other words, what happened? Let's say the brother who was the shlishis died, right? So his wife who was Yisrael fell to the brother who was a shenis. That should be usher, right? Or the shenis married a Mr. Shenis and fall to the other one. It'll be usher for him to go ahead and take, to go backwards and take a sheni, right? And the ibuch or the opposite, right? Each one married the wrong one. The nasiv mutaras,
but
right?
Why couldn't the shlishi take a sheni?
I think that's the halacha. That once you're mutter.
Yeah, once a mutter, then you can't go back.
Oh, you can't go back.
Right. Because you become part of the kal. Or they say the opposite, right? The nasa mutaras levein, the asur is levein. Or if the opposite, each one married the wrong one. So if they died and they fell to the right one, that would be asur the husband, mutter the husband. Why don't you, right? Mutaras levein, asur levein, mutaras le'elu ve'elu. Or le'elu ve'elu giras, right? Right. Excuse me, le'elu giras, asuras, le'elu islandus. Or excuse me, right? Mutaras le'elu giras, each one of them for giras, or to an islandus, which would be asur. So, in other words, they can go ahead and marry a giores. So that would have been mutter. If each brother would have married a giores, a convert, that would have been okay. Or if each one would have married an islandess, it says you can't marry an islandess, that would have been not okay. So why do we list these cases in our Mishnah?
Yeah.
Right? These are also cases that would fall in the category of either usher to the husband and mutter to the yavam, or vice versa, or usher to both, or mutter to both. Why was this not listed in our Mishnah? So the Gemara answers, Tana v'shayer. So it says, okay, because our Mishnah was not listing the complete list. There's other cases left out. There wasn't a specific list. These are just examples. It's not the only list. It's not the only items. So the Gemara says, so what other cases did it leave out? So the Gemara answers, Shayer psuadaka. Left off a case of a psuadaka, right? So it could have said, right, a psuadaka, let's say Yisrael that that married a female, right? So she is also about muteris livama.
He's not allowed to marry.
Right. So
he has a kosher brother.
Right, or vice versa. So you see, this case also psuadaka should have been listed. So,
in the Mishnah, Sharkol Nashim Baleim
right.
So all other women are. So it's a contradiction.
So the Mishnah says all right. So all of the women. In other words, how could you say time shy? In other words, it sounds like what you're saying is our Mishnah has a clause that says if you weren't listed, then you're mutter to mutter, right? Very good, right? So good question. So that lashon would become shver according to this, even according to the Gemara's maskana. It's a good question. But so let's see. So the Gemara says no, we left out other cases like psuadaka. So im shumdaka lav shiru. It's not left out. The tani le chivilavin. It included other cases of chavilavin. And since we already include, and psuadaka is a lav, right? That's only a lav to marry a psuadaka. So since it talked about chavilavin, so psuadaka is part of that. You can include, right, psuadaka in that case. It's sort of it's included. So ata chavilavin milak tani. What do you mean? It doesn't say multiple cases of chavilavin of other tani, right? It says that in other cases, Vaktani Kohen Hedyot Shinas, right? Kohen Hedyot Shinasa Amana, the Chala Shinasa Kshera. Right? It says both cases. A Kohen Hedyot that married all right. The case of that when he married an Almana, or a Chalal that married a Kshera, right? And therefore those cases, but result in the Yibum would be Aser, right? Because she's Chalala in those cases. So I'll eat strictly. No, maybe that we need those cases. Lashminan Kidder Rav Yehuda Marav. Damar Rav Yehuda Marav. Lo Huzur Ksheros Linase Lepsu. So says Rav Yehuda Marav that ksheros were not prohibited from marrying psula. In other words, we had the case of here that someone who is a chalal, right? So someone who is a chalal is allowed to go ahead and marry a bas Yisrael, but a Kohen, regular Kohen, cannot marry a chalal. It only goes one way, right? Dafka, if the Kohen is good to go, he can't go ahead and marry a halal. But if he's a halal, he's allowed to go ahead and marry a regular. If he's a halal, he can marry even a kshera. So maybe the is coming to teach us the chiddush is that a chalal can marry a kshera, right? You might have thought, well, a chalal can marry a kshera and a chalala can marry a kasher, right? It goes both ways. No. It's only the kasher can marry a chalala, but a chalal can marry a kshera. So the hak tani, it says I hak tani chalal shenasa kshera, yisrael shenasa bas yisrael v'yesh lo ach mamzer, right? But no, even in another case, it says another case, a chalal that married a kshera and it made her a chalala, or Yisrael that married the Yisrael shenasa bas Yisrael v'yesh lo ach mamzer. So all these cases, right, include lavin. So lavin are all included. So the Gemara answers, Hani nami lo mahadar misnahu, right? No, this maybe is not also a case of it repeating itself. Why? Dashmin and lav is changed shavah, right? Because maybe we're only just talking about a lav shein shavah. In the case of after the mamzer, which is a regular lav, this lav applies to everybody, right? V'yesh lach mamzer. So he dashmin lav shein shavah the kamash malan lav hashavah b'kol. So therefore, it's coming to teach you that even a case of a lav that is not shavah b'kol, i.e., when it comes to a chalal. So maybe maybe the Mishnah includes both cases of isurim, right? To teach you both lavim of that shavah b'kol, let's say a mamzer that applies to everybody, and only stuff that applies to kahuna like a chalal. So Yisrael shenas mamzeres v'yesh lo ach Yisrael, or mamzer shenas mamzeres v'yesh lo ach Yisrael. But it says that both ways: a Yisrael that marries a mamzeres, or a mamzer that marries a Yisrael that marries a mamzeres, or a mamzer Yisrael, right? These that marries a mamzeres, or a mamzer that marries a Yisrael. Yes. Right, the Israelis. So that those are both stated. Those are both lavin. So why'd you include both those lavs? Right, it goes that's two different lavs, right? The mamzer to a Yisraelis and the mamzeres to Yisrael. So those are included. So elav shmamina tana v'shayir shmamina. Rather, it must conclude that really our Mishnah was not the full list of all the surah of Asr Lezeb, Mutar Lezeb, because since you want to say, oh, it's teaching Isra Lav. Well, there's multiple cases of Isra Lav, not even Dafka, just one to a Kohen and one to Yisrael, because it lists multiple Lav when it comes to Yisrael, right? Because it works both ways. So therefore, Kamash Malon, that our mission is Tana V'Shayir, and really could have included other cases, such as the case of the Mitzvahs. Fine, Gufa. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Lo Huzuru Ksheros Linase Lepsulin. So says Rav Yehuda Marav. So ksheros, right? Abbas Yisrael is not forbidden, right? There is no law for her to go ahead and marry a psula nechal. So leim b'sayle. So let's say our mission is a proof.
There's no warning for a kasher.
For a kashera to marry a chol.
Right, because it's always written lo yavo mamzer b'kal sham lo yavo.
So bedaf. Right. So as soon as you see bedafka when it comes to chalal, so it says chalal because the leim silence here. Where's the Mishnah? It says chalal shenas kshera. So it says a chalal that married a kshera. So what does it mean a chalal married a kshera? So my lav kohenes haruya lo umay kshera kahuna. All right. What does it mean? Right. We're talking about basically a kohenes ufifrim umay kshera lahuna. She was kosher l'rakuna. So it says, no, Yisraelis may be referring to Shinasa Kshera, right? A chalal that married someone who's kosher l'vola kahal, right? Maybe someone's just mutter to marry kahal, not necessarily a Bas Yisrael. Well, my Kshera, so what do you mean Kshera l'kahal? So if that's the case, Yesh lo ach kosher. The case is Yesh ach kosher nami. So what does it mean he has an ach kosher? Mine not kosher l'kahal. So michlal dehu pasal l'kahal. What does it mean that if you're saying he's a brother who's kosher? So what does it mean kosher as opposed to what? As opposed to being a pasal l'kahal, right? So that doesn't make sense. Elav, rather than that, we're calling it Kohen, right? We're talking about he's a Kohen. Umidahu Kohen, he Kohenes, right? And by the fact that he's a Kohen, so that she's a Kohenes. So therefore, maybe we'll say it's a proof that over here we're talking about a case of a chalal who was mutter to go ahead and marry kshera, even a woman who's mutter to Kohenes. The Gemara says, no, mideari ha kadisa ha kadisa. Maybe each one is its own case. One is talking about that when it's kosher, in other words, to a kohen, and our scenario, maybe referring to it was kshera levola kal, and it's not a proof necessarily for Rav Yehuda Marav that a chalal can marry someone who's kosher lakuna. So Meisiv Rabin about Rav Nachman. So it says lo yikachu. So it says. So what does it mean? Where's the pasuk? The pasuk over there is Isha zona chalala lo yikachu. Isha grusha misha lo yikachu ki kadosh le'elkav. So it says a woman is a zone of a chalala. You should not take, right? Lo yikachu. So lo yikachu melamed, right? So it says over there twice, right? Sha'isha museres ayidei ish. That just like a man is commanded not to go ahead and take a chalala, so too the woman is commanded not to marry a chalal, which would argue with Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda Marav wanted to say it was just the man, right? The man who's kosher, is a kosher kohen, should not go ahead and marry a chalal. We'll see, it works both ways. So Amar Rav says no. Kol heicha dahavi muzer he muzeres. Kol heicha dehu lo muzer he lo mizdar. So it says no. Here's how the pasuk works. Yes, it does give to lav, but it doesn't give to lav when if a man marries or if a woman marries. It means if there's a lav on this man, then she also gets a lav in that scenario. So if he is a kohen and there's a lav for him to marry a chalala, so not only does he get a lav, but she also gets a lav. There's an isser on her. All right. So she's commanded also not to marry him, but it doesn't work the other way around.
She's a chalala.
She's a chalala, and she's a chalala. Whatever she comes from, whatever her parents was a grusha and a kohen.
So she's a chalala.
So she can't marry a kohen.
So she can't.
If a kohen marries her, not only does he get the lav, because it says isha zona v'chalala yikachu, she also gets a lav of marrying him. You're warned, right? You can't marry him either, right? Not only he can't marry you, you can't marry him. There's two issues going on. So the Gemara says, we learn this halacha from this pasuk of lo yikachu. Mederav Huda. Amarav nach. We learn from Rav Yehuda Marav. Amarav Yehuda Marav. V'chein tanat bei Rabbi Shmuel. Isha kiyasim echol chataos ha'adam. A man or a woman who does the kol chatas adam. So hisha kasav isha ish. So therefore, there's a comparison for a woman to the man. Like all anshi shavatayra. So for all anshi b'torah. So therefore, if the man is aser and they're both involved in this, so the woman gets it. So we have this pasuk teaches us that rule. So imi hai. If it was only for that pasuk, havamina would have thought lav isha b'kol. Maybe that's only referring to a lav that's shava b'kol. A lav that applies to everybody. Let's say a mamzer to Yisraelis or something like that. Something that everybody is commanded to. Aval lav shen shav b'kol. But let's say it's a specific lav that's not equal to all. Let's say a lav which only commanded a kohanim, right? A Yisrael can marry a chalala. A kohen cannot marry a chalala. So maybe a commandment bedafka on the kohanim only applied to the men and not the women, right? Aval lav shen shav b'kol lo. The guy says, what? What do you mean? B'harei tuma. Let's take a look at Tuma. The lav the lav in Shava B'Kol. Right, so lav that's not Shava B'Kol. But Tam Dekas Rachmana B'nei Aaron, V'lo B'nos Aaron. It's only B'nei Aaron. The sons of Aaron are commanded by Tuma, V'lo B'nos Aaron. So Allah Hachi have a mina Nashim Chayvos. I would have thought Nashim Chayvos. So my time Allah Mishum the Rav Yehuda Marav is not because of Rav Yehuda Marav. It says Isha. So it says Lo. Tikaminam Lo Yikachu. No, that we use the other pasuk Lo Yikachu to teach us that. So therefore, one pasuk is talking about. Right, by Tuma to teach us that Shava B'Kol, and the other pasuk over here is talking about that applies to both when men and women. And Ikad Amisim, just one in the final version. So Kichit straight. No, the dafka has to do the marriage. Maybe we learn from Tuma that is just the men, not the woman, and therefore maybe only the men are commanded. A Kohen is commanded not to take her, but there is no isser in her. So Kamash Malon, that there's also an isser on her if she allows this Kohen to go ahead and marry her. All right, we'll stop here. Shkarach, everybody. Tomorrow, Hashem, back to the normal schedule.